Hi everyone, happy Tuesday. So today we are going to be going over the Polygon angle sum theorem, which is 6-1. So first we're going to go over the Polygon interior angle sum theorem. And the Polygon interior angle sum theorem says that the sum of the measures of the interior angles of a convex n-gon is 180 times n minus 2. What does that mean? That means if I have a polygon, right, and it's convex, so that means that all of the angles are pointing out. So if I have a shape and all of the angles are pointing out, so that's convex. Concave would be if I had a shape something like this where the angles are going into each other, or, even if it's just like one of the angles, that would be concave. This does not apply, okay? This is only going to apply to polygons that are convex. And polygon, it just means, or n-gon, just means that it's a shape with many sides, okay? And the n, so the n here, means the number of sides. And some of our polygons, we know them by name, like a pentagon means that it's a 5-gon. It has 5 sides, right? A hexagon has 6 sides. But when it gets a little bit bigger, we just call them by the number and just go like 19-gon or 21-gon. That's just the way that you name them after you get past, I think, 12 sides. Okay. All right. So what this is saying is if I know the number of sides of my polygon, and it's a convex polygon, to find the sum of the measures of the interior angles. So that means that I'm trying to figure out like how much all of the angles add up to. Then I can use this formula right here, 180 minus n, 180 times n minus 2. And n is the number of sides. So 180 times the number of sides minus 2 of the sides, right? So minus 2. So if I were to take this shape here, this shape has 7 sides, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sides. If I add up the measure of all of the angles, which is also 7 angles, right? I could also, instead of adding all 7 up, especially if I don't know them, right? Instead of adding all 7 up, I can use this formula where I take 180 and I multiply it, so times, right? The number of sides, which is 7 minus 2, so this would be 5. So this is actually 180 times 5. And that's going to give me the sum of all the angles. So if I were to take all of the angles and add them all up, they would always add up to 900 when I have 7 sides. Okay. On this one in the picture over here, we have 8 sides. So our number is 8 instead. So we have 180 times 8 minus 2. And that gives us the number 1080. So when I take all of the angles and I add them up, they add up to 1080. Okay. And if my angles are different, on this one, they're all the same, right? They're all 135. Even if they're different, they're still going to add up to 1080 if my shape has 8 sides. Okay. All right. Now, corollary to this is if I want to know the measure of one interior angle, all I have to do is take that same formula, 180 times n minus 2, and divide it by the number of sides. So remember that means the number of sides. All right, so if I'm trying to figure out the measure of a regular n-gon, so regular n-gon means that all the sides are the same. So all sides, or not sides, I'm sorry, all angles. I'm saying this wrong. So when we have a regular n-gon, that means that all the angles are congruent. They're all the same. Okay. So if I'm trying to figure out what one angle in a regular polygon is, all I have to do is use that same formula, 180 times n minus 2, but then divided by the number of sides, and that's going to give me one of the angles. So what we see in this example is that I have a pentagon. Pentagon has 5 sides, right? So my n is 5. So to figure out how much one of the angles measures, I use 180 times 5 minus 2, which should be 3, right? And then once I do 180 times 3, I divide that by 5, and it gives me 108. That means that every single one of the angles in this pentagon is 108. Okay, so I can figure out what one is if it's a regular pentagon, like if all the angles are the same. Okay. All right, so let's look at this one example. This example is a little bit different than what we just went over. This says Jenna is building a corner cabinet to fit in a rectangular room. If she builds it with the angles shown, how can she determine whether the cabinet will fit? Well, the angles shown, this is 90, this one is 135, this angle is 135, and this one's 90, okay? The one that we're missing is this angle over here. I don't know what this is. If I'm trying to fit this corner cabinet in a rectangular room, so I'm trying to fit this into a rectangular room, all of the angles in that rectangular room are going to be 90 degrees, right? So what I'm trying to figure out is this angle 90 degrees? I don't know what it is, but I can figure it out. How can I figure it out? Well, if I take this and I count the sides, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides. That means my n is equal to 5, right? I can use my formula, 180 times n minus 2, to figure out the sum of all of the angles. So to figure out how much it's going to be when I add them all up, right? If I know what the sum is, then I can figure out my missing angle, right? So then I'm going to go 180 minus, or not minus, sorry, times 5 minus 2, which is 3, right? So this is going to be 180 times 3, which is, give me a second here, I'm putting it in my calculator, 540, right? So I know that all of these angles need to add up to 540. So if I make this one x, I know that x plus 90 plus 135 plus 135 plus 90, which is all the other angles that I had, right, has to equal 540. So I can figure out what my missing angle is. So let me go ahead and add all of that up. So I've got, or all the other numbers up. So I've got 90 plus 135 plus 135 plus 90. That gives me 450. So I have x plus 450 equals 540. So I'm going to subtract 450 from both sides. And that's going to give me 5 is equal to 90, right? So is the cabinet going to fit? Well, yes, it is, because it is a 90-degree angle, which is what she needs to be able to fit it into one of the corners of the rectangular room, right? So how can she determine whether the cabinet will fit? She can take the sum of the, well, this is what we did, right? We figured out what the sum of the angles were for the entire shape. And then we subtracted the angles that we knew to figure out that it was 90 degrees, right? So it will fit. So the cabinet will fit. Okay. All right. Now, our next one. The Polygon exterior angle sum theorem. Okay. So this theorem says that the sum of the measures of the exterior angles of a convex polygon, one at each vertex, is 360. Okay, what does that mean? That means that if I take each vertex of my shape and I extend the side so that I have an exterior angle for each side. So here's one angle, here's an exterior angle, here's an exterior angle, here's an exterior angle. Okay, so I'm talking about the angles that are made on the outside by a side, like, or by extending the side, right? If I add those all up, they're always going to end up adding up to 360. It doesn't matter how many sides my shape has. The exterior angle, so the angle on the outside, or that's made by the outside, on the outside side, on the outside of the shape, right? They're always going to end up adding up to 360. Again, doesn't matter how many sides I have. This one I like actually using a little bit better because it's easier to do. It doesn't matter, as I said, it doesn't matter how many sides the convex polygon has. It will, like, all the exterior angles will always add up to 360. Okay, now the explanation is here. I am not going to really go over it. If you want to read it to understand why it always adds up to 360, pause the video, read through it. You can see the explanation here. But what I need you to know is that if you use the exterior angles, it's always going to add up to 360. So all you really need to know is the number of sides that the shape has. And you can divide it by 360 and then subtract it from 180 to figure out the interior angle. Okay, so let's do an example so I can show you. So what is the sum of the exterior angle measures of a convex 17-gon? Well, the sum is always going to be 360. Okay, so the sum of the exterior angles will always be 360. It doesn't matter how many sides. Okay, all right, now let's move on to another example. If I wanted to figure out, actually, you know what, let me show you that first. If I wanted to figure out what the interior angles were, like one interior angle, then what I can do is figure out the exterior angle. So 17-gon, doesn't matter, well, it's going to have 17 sides, right? But if I think about just like, here's my exterior angle out here, right? Whatever this is, my interior angle is going to be 180 minus whatever this is, minus the x, right? So if I want to figure out what the interior angle of a 17-gon is, all I have to do is divide this by 17, which is the number of sides. And that's going to give me this x, this exterior angle, right? So then I take 360 divided by 17. I end up with x is equal to approximately 21.2, right? So if I want to know what the interior angle is, it's going to be 180 minus 21.2, which is 180 minus 21.2 is 158.8. So then one angle of the 17-gon is, or interior angle, right? So this would be the interior angle. One interior angle of the 17-gon would be 158.8 degrees. If I wanted to know the sum of the interior angles, then I would just take this number and multiply it by 17. Okay, that's another way to figure it out. All right, now this one. Find an exterior angle measure. So it says, suppose that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. The measure of angle 1 is 3x. So I'm going to put 3x over here. And the measure of angle 2 is 2x. So then this one's also 3x, right? What is the measure of each exterior angle? Well, I know that angles 5 and 4 are also going to be 90 degrees because they're a linear pair with this one, right? So this is 90 degrees, this is 90 degrees. This is a pentagon. It's got 5 sides, right? So I know that the sum of the exterior angles is going to be 360, right? So the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 4 plus the measure of angle 5 is equal to 360 because we're talking about the exterior angles, right? So then all I'm going to do is replace that with what I know. Measure of angle 1, we were told is 3x, right? And the measure of angle 3 is congruent to that, so that one's also 3x. The measure of angle 2 is 2x. So I replace that one with 2x. Measure of angle 3 was 3x, right? The measure of angle 4 is 90 degrees. The measure of angle 5 is 90 degrees. And I know that's going to equal 360 because, get rid of that. I'm going to put it over here. Because these are exterior angles. So now I just do the math to figure out what the x is. Once I figure out what the x is, I can figure out angle 1, 2, and 3, which are my missing angles. So then combine that, that's 8x plus 180 is equal to 360. I subtract 180 from both sides. I end up with 8x is equal to 180. Divide both sides by 8. And now I divide 180 by 8. So x is equal to 22.5, which means that the measure of angle 1 and angle 3, right, is going to be 3 times 22.5, which is 67.5. The measure of angle 2 is 2x, so it's 2 times 22.5. And that is, I think it's 45, right? Yeah, 45. So then, if I list them all out, measure of angle 1 is equal to 67.5. Measure of angle 2 is 45. Measure of angle 3 is also 67.5. The measure of angle 4 is equal to 90, and the measure of angle 5 is equal to 90. So here's the measure of all of my angles. Okay. All right. Let's try another one. So in this one it says, suppose that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3, is congruent to angle 4, it's congruent to angle 6, and angle 2 is congruent to angle 5, and the measure of angle 3 is equal to the measure of angle 2 plus 30. What is the measure of angle 4? Okay, so with this one, what we can say is that, let's say that the measure of angle 2 and angle 5, we're going to change that to an x. All right, so this is x, this is x. And then these are all exterior angles, right? So then I know the sum is going to add up to 360 because we're dealing with exterior angles. So if those are x, that means that this one is going to be x plus 30. This one will also be x plus 30. This one will also be x plus 30. And this one will be x plus 30. Right? So then the sum, instead of writing it all out, I'm just going to put 4 times x plus 30 because I have 4 angles that measure the same thing, right? And then plus 2 times x because I have 2 angles that measure the same thing. And that's equal to 360. Okay, so now I just figure out what x is so that I can go back and figure out the measure of angle 4, which is x plus 30. Okay, so then let's go ahead and distribute this out. We have 4x plus 120 plus 2x is equal to 360, which means that we have 6x plus 120 is equal to 360. I subtract 120 from both sides, and I end up with 6x is equal to 240. Divide both sides by 6. I end up with x is equal to, what is it, 8? No, doing that wrong. 40, okay. So x is equal to 40. So since the measure of angle 4 was equal to 3, right? 4 and 3 are congruent. And it was a measure of 2 plus 30, which is x plus 30. So 40 plus 30, which gives me 70. So the measure of angle 4 is equal to 70, which is what they asked for. Okay. All right, we got one more problem, and then that'll be it. Okay. So it says, what are the measures of the interior angles of the pentagon shown? Okay. So we have a pentagon. That means that we have a 5-sided figure. So to figure out what all the measures are, I need to figure out what x is, right? And to figure out what x is, I need to know what they all add up to, because I can add them up and say that they're equal to the sum. So because I'm dealing with interior angles, I'm going to use 180 times n minus 2 to figure out the sum of all of the angles of this pentagon. So because this is a pentagon, that means my n is equal to 5. Okay, so then I'm going to have 180 times 5 minus 2, which is the same thing as 180 times 3. 180 times 3 gives me, I think 540. Yeah, 540. So that means that the sum of all of the angles is 540. So this angle, I know that's 90 degrees, right? So if I add up all of my angles, they're going to add up to 540. So then I'm going to go ahead and take all of my angles. 90 plus 6x minus 3 plus 3x plus 4. And all I'm doing is going around in that direction. Just going this way, okay? 3x plus 4, and then plus 7x minus 3 plus 6x plus 12 is equal to 540. So now I just need to combine like terms and solve for x. So let's see, all of my x's are here. So we have 6 plus 3, 9 plus 7, 16 plus 6, 22. So I have 22x. Let me double check my math, make sure I got that right. So that's 12, that's 10, yeah, 22, okay. And then my numbers, I have 90 minus 3 plus 4. Actually, let's combine that. That would be 91. 91 plus 9 gives me 100. Okay, let me double check my math there. Make sure I did that right. So I got 90 minus 3 plus 4 minus 3 plus 12. Yeah, 100. Okay. So then 22x plus 100 is equal to 540. I subtract 100 from both sides. I end up with 2x is equal to 440. Oh, 22, not 2x, sorry. Divide both sides by 22. I end up with x is equal to 20. Is that right? Let me double check. Yeah, okay. So x is equal to 20. So if I want to figure out what the measure of all of the angles are, then I need to plug in this 20 into each of these. So then I'm going to have, and I'm going to do some mental math here. So I'm going to have 6 times 20, that's 120, minus 3, that's 117. 3x plus 4, that's 60 plus 4, that's 64. 7x minus 3, that's 7 times 20, that's 140, minus 3, that's 137, and 6x plus 12, that's 6 times 20 is 120, plus 12, that's 132. Okay, so there's all of my missing angles. Okay. All right, that is it for today. If you have any questions, please reach out, and I will see you tomorrow. All right, bye.